Hey guys, Chauncey Phillips here, and welcome to July 23rd DVD update. We're talking about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, guys, enjoy these update videos. Definitely give this video a thumbs up. Leave me comments below what you guys thought of titles I checked out this update. Any titles coming up which you guys like me to review for future updates, and some of the things you guys have picked up recently. Now, the first one I got from Shout Factory Scream Factory line. This is one that I wanted to see for a really long time. The trailers for this one were really cool. And I actually thought this was a really fun movie. It kind of had the feel of, David Cronenberg's The Fly, that kind of, stuff with, what's happening with the transformation aspects of it. But it's basically about this girl who goes on a trip. She's basically kind of almost sort of like a trip right before her wedding, and she's got this boyfriend, and the mother is really controlling and kind of like all these rules and stuff like that, and saying they can't sleep together before they're married. And she basically says, make sure my son doesn't sleep with you till you're married. She has all these kind of crazy rules. The woman's nuts. But when she goes over to this other country on this trip, before they're getting ready to about to get married, kind of before they start the major planning and everything for it, she ends up going to this lake out in the middle of nowhere, and she ends up getting bit by something. Something ends up happening. The second she comes back home, weird things are going on because of this bite that she got. There's some kind of a weird bug that was in the lake that she was in. The second she comes back, things start to happen, and she starts kind of like where she was bit starts kind of changing, and then kind of getting this boil on it, and then weird stuff starts to happen, and she starts to kind of almost mutate into this kind of bug-like kind of creature. And at the same time, people are kind of, she's attacking people, and all this kind of stuff is going on. But there's some really cool sequences too, when she's having these things where she's blacking out, and the bathtub, and then waking up, and the bathtub is full of this gooish slime stuff. When she comes out, she's spitting out a lot of slime because she fell asleep under the water in the tub, and all these weird, strange things are going on in this. And it's an ultra gory too, with the scenes of the attack scenes and the stuff. And when the woman too the actress did a really great job when she's transforming, showing the aspects of her kind of becoming more and more bug-like, and she did a really good job on that. I actually thought this was a very cool, grossed out kind of film. It has on here though a commentary track and then 5 documentaries on this film, looking at the production of this movie. But I would definitely recommend this one. This is one I really liked. The next one is, this is one and I remember, Scream Factory had been trying to put out for a while, and then I remember the original release, they ended up changing the date because they couldn't find an uncut negative of this movie. The prints they were all finding were all censored and things like that, and they were finally able to get an uncensored version of this movie with 2 different prints, and, to make a full uncut version of this movie. And, looking at it, I was thinking, man, if they didn't have this, there was so much I can imagine that would have been cut out of this. And it's a movie called Hellhole, and the one guy in this movie has this amazing name called Silk. And, it's this real cool name, Silk, and he kind of dresses in this kind of sadomasochistic bondage, weird wardrobe. But it's in the beginning of this movie, you see this guy dressed in this kind of bondage uniform kind of thing, and he ends up going and killing this one husband and the one's parents, and they were kind of trying to find these kind of, they killed the one mother basically. Yeah, so a mother and daughter, and then they end up killing the mother, but it's kind of confusing what they're trying to find. It's this guy has these the mother has these papers, and she's about to make this speech, something like that, with these papers. So they kind of want to get these papers back. It's very confusing exactly what they were doing, but the daughter, though, ends up getting away from that killer, and she ends up falling off of this thing on a construction site and basically waking up and having amnesia. And they kind of put her away until they can find these papers in an insane asylum. So she's in there in this insane asylum, not knowing who she is, trying to figure out what's going on, and she has no clue exactly what had happened to her and how she lost her memory. She doesn't really remember any of it. But at the same time, though, the guy, that Silk guy, is kind of coming back to this insane asylum, kind of lurking around, trying to scare her into remembering where these things are that he's trying to find, because he's, been paid off to try and find these things. And of course, he's trying to, and at the same time, in this insane asylum, there's this weird stuff going on with Mary Warnoff's character, from Night of the Comet and Eating Raoul. She's a great character actress. She's in this as kind of the person who runs this, and they have an area called Hellhole where they're doing these weird experiments on women and these strange things going on. But this is one, I really love this movie. This was one of those kind of movies that it's always cool when you discover a movie that you had never seen before, and this is one of those ones that was like that. that was a very cool 80s film, and has on here, you know, a new interview with Mary Warnoff and a theatrical trailer, and the transfer in this one is very good. Like I said, glad that, you know, Shout Factory was able to get a full transfer to release this one. This is another one that I had never heard of before. This is from Scream Factory as well, and it's a movie called The Boy Who Cried Werewolf. And I was looking into this one. It originally played as a double feature with the movie S, which, you know, Shout Factory put out like a month or so back. This is basically about this father and son, and they're out, and the father ends up getting attacked by this like werewolf kind of creature, and, you know, and gets bit by this werewolf, and then the guy that's the, you know, the werewolf creature that bites them ends up falling off this cliff and then dying, and then you see that it's like a regular man when this has happened. But after this has happened, though, the kid's father is kind of, when there's full moons and stuff like that, is going out doing weird stuff, and the kid is like kind of suspecting it's him because he's noticing his father is starting to change and all this stuff is going on. It's a very cool movie, though, and there's these weird hippies in this movie. That's one of the most interesting aspect, is kind of religious commune hippie group, and the kids with his father going, "Dad, can we go talk to them?" They go down there and see them. They're these really strange guys, and the one woman's like, "Oh, hello, lover," and the one guy is acting like, this whole group, they're all kind of worshiping this one guy, like almost like a, I don't know, he's just a really strange type. The whole aspect of that hippie commune religious group was really strange, the stuff they're doing. And the thing that was interesting about this movie too was they shot a lot of this movie like day for night, and I kind of like that, the weird aspect of this movie, because like that you could tell they were shooting a lot of it like when it really wasn't dark, so it's like really bright when you see the werewolf going around at night, lurking around. You can go, this is daytime. So like a couple points I was trying to think, wait, is that night or is that day? Because you couldn't tell, because when they shot this movie, they definitely were trying to do day for night, and it was working sometimes, and then it wasn't at other times. And it also is a real pretty dismal kind of movie too, with, you know, some of the stuff that happens in it. It's a real dismal stuff, and some crazy attack scenes too of the werewolf. And I feel like too, this werewolf definitely inspired Michael Jackson's version of the werewolf. I feel like Michael Jackson probably saw this movie as a kid and got inspired by that look for, like, the werewolf that he had in the Thriller video, because it really had that look to it. But a really good transfer in this one. Like I said, it's another one I had never seen before and really enjoyed. And the next one from Scream Factory as well is a movie called The Binding. This is a movie about this woman who basically has this newborn child, and her husband is like this preacher, and all of a sudden the husband is starting to act really odd and really strange, and the stuff that he's saying, and then when he's like doing his sermons and stuff like that, there's just something really up about him. He seemed like originally like this really good guy, but then all of a sudden you're starting to notice that there's something up with him, and something up with like the whole thing that's going on with him, and he's kind of having these weird visions and all these weird things that are going on. It's one of those kind of creepy, kind of religious theme kind of vibe movies when you're just sort of trying to figure out exactly what is going on and why, you know, because like the husband, you can tell that like it's kind of building up to something bad is probably going to happen because of how this father, her husband is acting, and like just him too as this priest too, the way he is with his kind of talking to people and everything is very creepy movie, but like a kind of a creepy religious vibe kind of movie. And has on here though cast interviews, deleted scenes, and audio commentary on this one. The next one is the brand new collector's edition release, and this is the 1978 one of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I think I've seen all the Body Snatcher ones, because I know there's this one, the original one from '58, and then there was one I think just called like Body Snatchers or something that was like a Meg Tilly one, which I don't know if I have that one, but I remembered liking that one as well. And this is the one, with Donald Sutherland, and this is the brand new collector's edition with a really cool new artwork on this one. Love the new artwork that, Scream Factory has for this release. But if you guys don't know this movie, it's basically, though, about this woman who works for the FDA or something, like where they kind of evaluate, like, how clean restaurants are and like the cleanliness of things. She works with Donald Sutherland, and they both kind of go into restaurants and stuff. And her husband is like, all of a sudden, when they got this plant that they brought in, all of a sudden something starts to happen to the husband, and all of a sudden the husband, who's this really like nice guy, all of a sudden something happens to him and he changes, and she's like convinced that it's not him, because the husband is kind of acting almost like one of the Stepford wives, real like remote and really reserved and not happy and not the same at all. She's convinced that he's not the same person, that he looks like the husband, exactly like the husband, but it's not the husband. There's something weird going on. And And then all around too, when Donald Sutherland hears this, because she tells him about that, she believes that there's something up. He kind of laughs it off at first, but then he starts kind of hearing people around saying the same type of thing. He hears it in a dry cleaner when this one guy's going, she's not my wife," and he starts to kind of want to investigate this. So he kind of starts to look into this. Jeff Goldblum is in this movie as well. It's one of his earlier movies. I think one of his first. I don't think it was his first movie. It was probably like maybe 4 years into his acting or so, but one of his really early ones for a bigger role though. But really creepy movie too, because there's these sequences too when the plant kind of thing are like making clones of people, and really cool sequences in this movie. Always really like this one. It has on here though a brand new 2K scan on this one, new interviews with actors Brooke Adams and Art Hindle and the writer on this one, and then a number of the features from the past releases as well. But a really cool one, definitely worth the upgrade. Really great new transfer in this one, and always one that I've always really liked. The next one I'm just going to let you guys know came out from Shout Factory, and this is Red Sonja, Queen of Plagues. And this is like a graphic novel turned into because it's the Red Sonja character, and I think it's the same character that was from the movie from the 80s, and it's kind of like a warrior barbarian kind of character, and who's kind of like, it's set during kind of like the plague going on, but it's kind of a motion comic, kind of when they kind of animate the graphic novel and photos and the pictures from the books and things like that and add animation to them. It's actually a pretty cool technique that they did on this one. Looks really cool though if you're into this and you're into the Red Sonja graphic novel series. But has on here though a featurette on this film, interviews with the writer, as well as members of the cast and crew. The next one, this is one from Lionsgate, which is one I was really interested in seeing. Sky Ferreira is in this movie, so I wanted to see what she did in this film. She has a pretty good role in this, and it's a movie starring Nicolas Cage and Elijah Wood called The Trust, and both of them are these cops. They're really good friends who are like these cops. And then I'm going to say too, this movie really surprised me. This was a very, very good movie. Like, I really liked this one. This is one of those ones after I watched it, I was like, I could go back and watch this one again. But it's basically though, there are these two cops, and Nicolas Cage, kind of goes to like these police auctions and things like that. He gets sent to a police auction to go there and kind of make him take this lawnmower or like this riding mower off the floor, because the one chief that like his boss wants it to give as this gift. So he goes there to kind of tell them, "Can you take this off the floor?" He wants to buy this for cheap. But when he goes there, he's talking to one of the guys who's working at this police auction. He's like, "Oh, I found all these cocaine and all these drugs inside of this the motor of this car. Like, what a smart way that they hid it in there." And Nicolas Cage's character starts looking into this and finding out that the person that had this car was out on a $200,000 bail, bail bond thing. And he's thinking, how in the world did this guy get all this money? And he's starting to realize that there's something going on about this guy. So he starts kind of becoming obsessed about it, and realizing and finding out that this guy has this building where there's this freezer that was put in, but it ends up turning out to be this safe. And Nicolas Cage becomes kind of obsessed with the idea that there's money or there's something in this safe, and he talks Elijah Wood's character in playing this heist. And it's not like the typical heist where it's like, oh, a big group of people. It's just them, and it's kind of their plan of how are they going to plan this to get into this building and pull this thing off and get into this safe, which is a massive safe that they look into. And it's a very interesting movie. Like I said, I always like heist movies like this when they're kind of trying to break into buildings and stuff. And it usually, like I said, it's usually lots of people and a whole big to-do. This is like kind of an intimate kind of portrait of them doing this. And it's a lot of side stuff going on in the story-wise. But it has on here, though, some featurettes on here and a commentary track. But definitely check this one out, guys. Like I said, I was really surprised with one. Sky Ferreira's in this movie too, and really, really like this one a lot. And I'm always a fan of Elijah Wood and Nicolas Cage, but sometimes Nicolas Cage movies can sometimes be hit and miss. But this one was really, really good. The next one, this one I saw in theaters as well, and it's a movie starring Kevin Costner. It's got Gary Oldman, Tommy Lee Jones, Alice Eve in this one, Ryan Reynolds is in this movie. But it's basically, though, the movie is about Ryan Reynolds, and he's basically, I think he's a CIA kind of guy. He's CIA operative, and he's kind of planning this kind of thing that he's going on and following this guy to try and prevent this terrible thing from happening. And he ends up going and basically getting killed before he can kind of reveal where something that the other CIA operatives need to know where it is. So they go, what are we going to do? And they have this new technique where they believe they can do this, where they can take someone's memory and put it into someone else's. So they go, who are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? We need somebody to be alive. And they find Kevin Costner, who's this, convicted criminal in jail for life for murder and all these heinous things. And he's a real, like, hot-headed, real, like, terrible, crazy guy. And they end up basically taking him in and implanting Ryan Reynolds' mind into him and trying, waking him up. And first of all, it's like not going well because it's not like he's not seeming to, have Ryan Reynolds' memories, and they really need to know what this thing is and need him to figure this out. And at the same time, though, he starts getting memories, though, from his past about his, Ryan Reynolds' wife and his kid, and it's all this kind of stuff going on. It's one of those movies, too, where it's kind of like a character who's like the most hated kind of person can actually maybe start to do some good things. But I was really surprised at this, and I always really like Kevin Costner, and it's kind of him really going like real crazy, and like a guy who's like really attacking people and going nuts, kind of going like kind of Taken kind of level, kind of like violence of him going real nuts like that. I really, really enjoyed this one, but I've always been a fan of Kevin Costner, like ever since like the days of like Waterworld and things like that. I've always loved him in movies, and this actually, like I said, was a pretty good movie. It has on here, though, deleted scenes and a featurette on the movie as well, and a music video. The next one is a movie, that John Travolta stars in called I Am Wrath. And it's basically about this gang of this street gang that ends up killing, John Travolta's wife, and the guy that does it, he ends up pointing it out. He knows who the person is. And of course, though, because of some situations, they can't hold the guy in jail, and, John Travolta becomes pretty much obsessed about the whole thing, and the idea that the guy is loose on the street. He hates that idea, and hates that, his wife is going to kind of be like, allow the person that kills his wife to be taken down. And there's a whole thing to it about the wife, that she's going to be making this speech, and you're kind of trying to figure out exactly who are the people that ended up actually killing the wife. But he ends up basically going rogue, and it's a kind of another kind of Taken type film where he actually ends up going to try and track down the people that were involved in this and figure out exactly, get to the bottom of who it was that made this actually happen. I actually liked it. Like I said, it's kind of John Travolta doing a kind of Taken type vibe film and kind of like a revenge type film, but has on here a commentary track with the director and writer on this one. And this is one from Lionsgate as well that I really liked. And, when it comes to horror movies, like when I find one that I really like, it's like, some of them are okay, and other ones, like, really not great at all. This one, I really, really like this a lot. And it's a movie called Summer Camp, and I actually like the setting of this as well. It was in Spain. It's a group of these 4 American friends that end up going, I guess they're sort of friends, go to this English-speaking summer camp in Spain. I believe it's set in Spain. And they go there to basically be the camp counselors there, and they go there like the day before all the campers start getting there. And, they're going there kind of setting up and stuff, trying to getting to know each other and getting to know some of the other people that are there. And it's kind of like one of those things where all of a sudden, something happens and one of the characters goes absolutely ballistically crazy. Like this black stuff's coming out of their mouth, and they start attacking the one guy and trying to kill him. And of course that ends up happening, and because of that he has to self-defend himself and kills the guy. But you're kind of realizing that something at this camp, around this camp where they're staying, is making people go absolutely insane. And the thing that's interesting about this movie is it's not like kind of where people go insane like a zombie or something and then they're like this for good. It kind of flips back and forth. They can all of a sudden be normal again. So it's kind of like the character's like, oh, are you back to normal? Like they don't even know if the person's still nuts, and the person that's nuts can actually become crazy themselves. So it's all this kind of stuff going on about them basically trying to survive this night when it's flipping back and forth of them going absolutely insane. But I really, really enjoyed this one a lot. And it's another one that's kind of gruesome what's going on and stuff. But I like those kind of super gory type films. And this one was very good. The one guy from this was the star of the one character in Scream Queens on Fox, and the other one was on that I think Starving Games movie. But I actually, like I said, really like this one. The next one is another one I didn't get to see in theaters and was really wanted to check this one out. It's a movie Tom Hanks is in called A Hologram for a King, and the director of this actually directed one movie that I really love called Perfume, like a story of a murderer, and he also was one of the directors as well on Cloud Atlas, which is another movie that I kind of got mixed reviews, but I always really like that movie. But it's a movie called A Hologram for a King, starring Tom Hanks. It's basically Tom Hanks gets sent to Saudi Arabia on this kind of, he's basically going there to pitch this kind of type of meeting where it's like a hologram, and you can have like the character, be in one country but talking to another person, but actually see their whole body, like a futuristic kind of hologram meeting type thing. He gets sent to Saudi Arabia with his team, and he goes there, and like it's kind of a mess because like he doesn't know exactly what's going on. They put him out in the middle. It's like this area of Saudi Arabia where they're trying to go and build it up. It's basically all just sand and a couple little spots where they're trying to basically build this enormous, huge city with media centers and, tons of houses, apartment complexes, all this stuff. But he's there in the very early stages of it, trying to land this big deal because, he knows that if he doesn't get this is going to really screw him up at his job, and maybe he's going to lose his job. So he's like determined to make this work. But he goes there, and the king is like nowhere to be found, and they're saying that they haven't seen the guy in like almost like a year and a half. So he's kind of there, not knowing what he's going to do. And there's some great scenes of him too, with his friend who's like this taxi driver that he meets there, who's kind of driving him around everywhere. And there's this great, banter between them. Like, I really love those two characters in this. He also is there. He has this kind of lump that he got on his back from flying. He doesn't know what it is. And it is also this aspect of him with, meeting this woman who's a doctor there that he really likes. But the whole thing is basically just about his time in Saudi Arabia where this is all going on, but really well done, and has some of those flashback kind of feelings that really had a feel of like Perfume and like the director's other movies. Like I really could tell it was his movie with some of those sequences. The next one here, this is one I saw in theaters, and it's probably one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. Like, when it comes to comedies, like, there's some movies that you kind of just sit there and you're like, not laughing at all. Like, this one, I laughed hysterically at this. This has so many hilarious jokes to me, and Mike Epps was really, really funny in this. Mike Tyson is in this movie, in this ridiculous role, and this movie is basically a spoof, like a parody spoof of The Purge. And I remember when I first saw the poster for this, I had no idea that's what this was at all. And then, like, I looked at the trailer, I'm like, oh man, I've got to watch this movie. And it was like an insane spoof of The Purge, and like way better than like some of the last scary movies to me. And the director of this, I think I've seen a lot of his movies in theaters. I saw like Chain Letter, but this is like one of his first comedies, I think. And I really hope he does more of these kind of movies. But the movie is basically, like I said, a spoof of The Purge, and Mike Epps' character ends up stealing all this money from this guy who gets put in jail. So all of a sudden he's like this guy who didn't have any money, and all of a sudden has all this money, buys this mansion, buys this car and all this stuff. So he's kind of like living large now with all this money in this mansion. And like there's people in the neighborhood that are like these weird neighbors that are looking at him sideways and stuff for moving in here. And of course though, they're here and they have the purge happening, the purge night, and Mike Epps' character becomes paranoid that the people that he took the money for are going to come for him. Of course, that's what's going on. All these weird kind of characters that are coming to get him when he's in this house, and these insane sequences. But this movie was so funny to me, and some really hilarious jokes, especially the one character from Africa that kind of comes to get him. For one reason or another doesn't like Mike's F character. Some of the stuff that he was saying was absolutely hilarious. But it has on here though a making of feature on the movie, and a behind the scenes on this one, and some outtakes. But really, really like this one a lot. The next one, this is another really funny movie from Sony called The Bronze. Another one I saw in theaters. This is one of those another raunchy kind of mean-spirited comedy, and I really like those kind of mean-spirited comedies. And this is like an epiphany of a mean-spirited comedy. And the main actress from this is from The Big Bang Theory, and I've never really saw that show, but I have seen some clips of her on that. But she's totally different in this because she has a real high-pitched voice in that show. It's a movie called The Bronze, and a lot of character actors are in this movie. Gary Cole plays her father in this movie, but it's basically she was like this really popular gymnast, in the Olympics, and everything was looking up for her, and she had a really great life, and she was kind of riding the coattails of this and having brand deals and making all this money. But now this is, I think it was 12 years later, and everything is kind of flopped, and she's kind of become a total has-been. She's still trying to live up what she had, but, other people coming around, and she's really not what she was at all. She's going around, doesn't really want to work anywhere, doesn't really want to do anything. She kind of just thinks that she's famous because of this, and has this real mean, like, kind of negative attitude, and no one can really tell her what to do whatsoever. She's just going to do what she wants. And her father is like, you're going to have to figure something out because he's always stealing her money and all this kind of stuff. And there's this one girl in a town who's a gymnast as well, and she ends up, because of one of her the person who trained the character, in the beginning, when she was younger, has passed away, and basically they need someone to train this new girl who's trying to train for the Olympics. So they talk her into doing that by saying, because the woman basically wrote this letter who died saying, if you do this, I'm going to pay you all this money, because she had all this money the whole time. So she kind of talks her into training this girl, and it's kind of her trying to train her for the Olympics, but she's really negative and really giving her all kinds of crap, and it's just hilarious sequences of stuff trying to see if they can get to the Olympics. But another one I really like, that this has deleted scenes on this one. This next one from Sony is one called The American Side. This is basically, because it says the American side, because it's set on the side of, Niagara Falls was the American portion of it. And it's this woman who, hires this private detective to try and find this person. And, he ends up, very early in the beginning of the movie, finds this guy. And he ends up, basically, right after he finds him, the guy's talking to him saying, oh, did they follow you? They're following me. And he's acting really strange. And he starts talking about Tesla. And he starts hearing about this Tesla invention. This is definitely a noir kind of 30s noir kind of feel, like the dialogue and the talking and everything in this movie has that kind of feel to it. But the guy ends up going off the bridge and he kills himself, and the cops are kind of talking to this private investigator, looking at him because he was the last person to see him, looking at him like maybe he had something to do with this. And it's kind of the guy trying to figure out exactly what had happened and why this guy did this and what he was saying and the stuff he was finding out about Tesla and this invention and all this kind of stuff, trying to put, it's one of those kind of things about trying to put the pieces together and trying to figure out what everything means on this one. But it was a pretty interesting one. Like I said, it has that kind of noir, kind of old school kind of feel to this one. The next one from Universal, and this is a very fun movie called Hardcore Henry, and the whole movie is filmed first person, so it's all from the perspective of Henry's character, and he's this guy who ends up waking up in this kind of weird kind of building, and this woman is attaching, who says she's his wife, I think Haley Steinfeld, not Haley Steinfeld, Hannah, what's her name? Haley Bennett, who has been in lots of different movies, The Hole and a bunch of films, but she's basically attaching this arm onto him and saying that she's his wife, and, you're not going to have memories of anything, and something had happened to him. But it's basically, though, this kind of guy with white hair, albino type guy, he kind of bursts in the room and he kind of throws everybody around right after Henry comes back to life, or ever happened to him, and he's throwing around people in the room. Henry ends up basically escaping with his wife, and the wife ends up getting kidnapped by this albino kind of guy with these mind controls. Henry's character is basically being told what to do and trying to find his wife, and this one guy who says that he's his friend keeps popping up everywhere. And it's interesting too is the guy keeps getting hit by cars or blown up and killed, but immediately you see the guy again, but he looks 10 seconds later you see him, but he looks like somebody else. So it's what is going on here? How does this guy keep on living? It's like a cartoon kind of thing, because all of a sudden he looks like somebody else, and he looks like he has dreadlocks, and there's all these different types of looks. But I was one of those movies too where the end of the movie, I was really happy with the way everything was going, and had this real cool vibe to this movie. I don't think everyone will love this movie, but to me, this is one of those movies that I really liked. And I don't want to lie, I don't like a lot of super action movies. To me, action movies can be really hit and miss. Some of them I don't like at all. This one, on the other hand, was a very cool, well done, different one, but has on here deleted scenes, a commentary track on this one as well. The next one from Universal is a TV series called The Magicians, and this is the complete first season. Cool lenticular cover on this one, but it's basically about this guy who ends up finding this letter and basically he's in this regular college, and he's really into magic and magic books and anything kind of magic related, and he has all these kind of books on, and his girlfriend as well is kind of into magic. There's kind of thing that they kind of have bonded on, and he ends up basically finding this paper, and ends up going through this kind of portal type thing into this other area where it's almost like a Harry Potter type land, when everybody's doing all this advanced magic and stuff like that, and he's there, and he's kind of trying to figure out what's going on here in this magic college. And they kind of trying to recruit him to be there to learn all these techniques that magic really is real, and it's not just an illusion, that it actually has realness to it, and it's actually a real thing. But that's essentially what this one is. A pretty interesting show. It's a show that's on Sci-Fi, and I think there's going to be a second season of this as well. It has on here deleted scenes, gag reel, and a featurette on this. And this one was one Luis Guzman movie from Universal as well, called Puerto Ricans in Paris. And this was actually a pretty fun movie. I've always been a fan of Luis Guzman, definitely one of my favorite character actors. And it's basically he's him and his partner, who are these cops, kind of specialize in like finding, stolen bags and finding knockoffs and doing sting operations where they kind of con people into telling them about their bags that they're selling, and like Versace's that are fakes, and then they arrest them. This woman comes to them from Paris saying that she has this really expensive $1 million bag was stolen from her, and she wants, the French police can't do it. They can't find anything. They're not tough enough. So she wants them to come to Paris to try and help her find this bag. So it's them, totally like a fish out of water movie about them going to Paris to try and find this bag with all these weird stuff going on. The movie it actually kind of enjoyed this movie. It had a weird filter over some of the scenes though, like when they get, like, I don't know, like they were using kind of an odd filter on the movie itself. But besides that, I mean, it was just kind of just a technique thing they were doing, I guess. But it was actually a pretty funny movie. Like, I always really like Luis Guzman, and it's kind of him just trying to solve this case when he doesn't really even know what he's doing there, to be honest. He's just trying to figure this out. And the character that plays his partner was actually really good. I think this is one of his first movies, but I can definitely see him doing a lot more stuff. They were both really funny together. Would love to see them do more movies together. And the next one from Warner Brothers, and sorry if I'm getting red, it's very hot in here right now, is because I can't have the air on, is Barbershop: The Next Cut, which is the third in the Barbershop films. I actually have always really liked the Barbershop films. They even had the spin-off film, the Beauty Shop film, but this one is now Ice Cube's character. This is years later after the second movie, and he's now has a beauty shop inside of the barbershop to kind of keep things running. And the neighborhood where he is starting to get it. There's a lot of violence going on outside, and they're all getting kind of concerned. And these movies, too, are really great for kind of like the stuff going on back and forth between the people in the barbershop, kind of having discussions and arguments about things, and that's really the best stuff in the movie. But, Ice Cube's character is getting really nervous because his son is getting older, and he's really worried that his son's friend is going to get into this gang, and he's just getting very concerned about the whole thing and what's happening with his son, and just doesn't want this to happen, and doesn't want, all the violence that's going on outside, and doesn't even know if he can keep this place open because people are scared to come there. So it's kind of him and the people in the barbershop kind of talking about and trying to figure out exactly how they're going to solve this problem. That's essentially what the film was. But it has on here, though, deleted scenes of this one and a gag reel. But I think, this is a fun movie with some positive messages, too, which really topical today with what's going on. I actually like this one a lot. And this is a really surprisingly good movie. And I like these kind of movies, to be honest. And it's a movie from Anchor Bay called Careful What You Wish For. It has, Nick Jonas, Isabel Lucas, and Dermot Mulroney in this. And it's called, like I said, Careful What You Wish For. And Nick Jonas did a really good job in this one. I think this is one of his first movies where he was the lead, I'm pretty sure. But it's basically, though, him and his family move into this kind of cabin, and right next door is this one guy who has a much younger wife, and he kind of starts to, like, looking at the wife, and, Nick Jonas's character, and really noticing her, and she's kind of winking at him. And basically what's going on, though, is Nick Jonas basically goes over there and helps the guy out, cleaning his boat and helping around his house and stuff, but at the same time he starts having this secret relationship and sleeping with the one's younger wife, and it becomes this huge, like, he's kind of nervous, and he's very nervous, though, that the guy's going to find out and he's going to try and kill him, or what's going to happen. But one thing leads to another, and something really bad happens to the one's husband, and it becomes this huge nightmare of a thing. This is one of those movies, too, that had a lot of really interesting twists in this one. This one twist, I was thinking, maybe this could happen, and I did pick up on one of the twists, I will say, because it's one of those movies that's all over the place, trying to figure out exactly what's going on, and Nick Jonas makes some really bad decisions and says yes to doing certain things and covering things up and playing along with stuff, because it's like he really becomes obsessed with this woman. But like I said, I was very surprised at this movie and really, really liked this one. Another one, this is another really good one. There's a lot of good ones in this update. It's a movie from Artsploitation Films. It's a company I really like their releases. They put out some really pretty cool stuff like Horsehead and Cub. And this is a movie called The Perfect Husband. It's about a couple that ends up going to out in the middle of the woods on this, trip, and they're basically, though, his wife, their kid, basically, she ended up losing this child, and they're very upset about the whole thing, and you can tell that his wife, he's carrying around these like medication, and the wife is acting really all over the place and really strange and negative and like manic, and you're trying to figure out what's going on here about this, and she's even going out in the middle of the woods and like running into trees and blacking out. But then there's something flips here when the things are starting to look like they're okay. But then the husband, when after the woman blacked out, this ranger kind of character brought her back to the house, and he becomes like obsessed that the wife was sleeping with him, and he's sleeping. So the wife is sleeping around with all these people, and he's like, "You're sleeping with everybody," and all of a sudden it becomes this huge nightmare thing of what he does going on, and this huge mess of going on. I really like this one a lot. This was actually a small character piece movie, but really pretty creepy, and some really pretty memorable sequences in this one. It has on here, though, behind the scenes on this one. But really like this. The next one from Severin Films. This movie has had two different names, Dr. Butcher MD and Zombie Holocaust. And they're both, have brand new transfers on these ones. And I don't think Dr. Man Butcher, that edition, has ever been released before. And they both have like really different music too. But it's basically, though, it's basically a movie about this guy, these doctors, and in the doctor's office there's this one guy who ends up basically eating human people, like the bodies and stuff like that are in the medical students are messing around with and like doing tests on and stuff like that. But the one guy, they find him eating body parts and all kinds of weird stuff, and they're kind of trying to investigate exactly what's going on, and they end up finding out about this island where the guy had come from, and that there might be something weird going on. So of course they all go there to this island, and it's filmed in the same place that they filmed Zombie. So they go there, and then stuff starts to happen there, and like there's weird like zombie type characters and cannibals. It's like interesting thing because it's like mixing like a Cannibal Holocaust movie mixed with zombie, so it's all like lumping them together into an interesting movie. It's not the greatest movie of all time, I will say that for sure, but it definitely is a fun movie. But it has on here tons of different features, down the tour of 42nd Street on here, interviews with the FX artist. Really great release though, feature wise though. But like I said, a pretty interesting movie, like I said, and it has both the versions on here. And these ones I'll let you know are out from Synapse Films, and the artwork on these are amazing. These are some of the best drawing, new covers I've seen in a long time for Basket Case and Basket Case 2. And they have on here, new transfers on, I think that the new transfer is only mainly on the second movie, but both of them look very good. And then basically, though, if you don't know these are the sequels to the Basket Case film about a guy who had that guy growing, his like twin brother growing off the side of his body. And the second one, though, they basically go to this really weird, him and his brother, like he was like living in a basket, go to this strange kind of a place where it's all these different kind of freaky characters run by this old woman, and everybody's really odd and has all these deformities and these weird kind of characters in there. Always remembered creeping me out because it has kind of like Neon Maniacs kind of characters. And the second one is the deformity brother is actually having a baby with this woman that looks like himself, and it's a really, really weird movie, but they're really fun, ridiculous, over the top movies, and really cool. They're out on Blu-ray with these great new artwork on them. And the next one from HBO is one called The Confirmation, and this has who's the star of this one? Kerry Washington and Greg Kinnear is in this. This is based on a true story about a guy who was running, I think he was for Congress, and and George W. Bush Sr. was kind of endorsing this guy, and he basically, people are kind of talking through the woodwork that he had done some bad stuff with women, like all kinds of stuff was going on, and Kerry Washington's character ends up coming forward and saying that he wasn't appropriate with her and the things that he did. So it's kind of a courtroom kind of drama thing, like a true story about her kind of testifying against the guy and kind of coming out against this guy who was running. It's one of those kind of interesting kind of character piece ones. It has on here, though, some featurettes on this one, though. And the last two are from... There goes everything. And our last two are from Mill Creek, and it's really cool they're releasing these on Blu-ray. They're the William Castle sets, you know, the double features that have 13 Ghosts, 13 Frightened Girls, Homicidal, and Mr. Sargonicus. I was checking through these ones, look really, really good on Blu-ray, and they're going to be releasing some more of these as well down the line. 13 Ghosts, though, was one I always really liked. You know, they made a remake one of that as well, about these people that inherit this house and all these ghosts and this creepy stuff going on. I always really liked the William Castle movies, because, you know, these are the characters, you know, William Castle who inspired the matinee character in the John Goodman movie, because they always did all these kind of gags with them when they had, like, things on the seats that would vibrate, and barf bags and all kinds of crazy stuff. But really cool that they're releasing these on Blu-ray, though. Anyway, though, guys, that's all for this Blu-ray update video. Thanks again for watching and subscribing. I'll see you guys later. Bye.